shore. We got no DD tanks on the beach. Dog 1 is not open.
26 years after Steven Spielberg's Saving Private Ryan stormed theaters like Allied forces hitting Omaha Beach, the film remains one of cinema's most unforgettable war epics. Many film fans remember the heart-stopping D-Day scenes and Tom Hanks's stellar performance as Captain Miller. Surprisingly, the chaos in the film matched those behind the scenes. Discovering all the weird facts about Saving Private Ryan would make you see the movie in an entirely new light. So tag along while we reveal 20 weird facts you never knew about the cinematic masterpiece. Number 1. How cable companies destroyed Spielberg's vision. In cinema history, not many stories show the vast divide between the vision of a film project and commercial practicality. Steven Spielberg made a deliberate decision to desaturate the film's colors by 60%, and that was a bold choice, knowing how much it would affect the film's final result. His decision wasn't out of the blue. It was calculated and well thought out. By draining the vibrancy from the image, he created a kind of visual that reflected the grim reality of war. This muted palette served multiple purposes. It evoked the grainy, washed-out quality of actual World War II photography and newsreels. It also created an emotional distance that made the violence feel more documentary-like than cinematic. It added to the film's realism, allowing the visuals to match the plot's setting. But there was a little problem. When Saving Private Ryan aired on television, major satellite providers like DirecTV and Dish Network, along with most cable companies, discovered that viewers had a lot of complaints. They were used to the vibrant coloring of modern television, so they assumed their televisions were malfunctioning. Faced with overwhelmed customer service centers and mounting complaints, these companies made a decision. They artificially enhanced the coloring and reversed Spielberg's stroke of genius. It was all taken in good faith after all. What use was a masterfully done movie if no one was going to see it? Number 2. Spielberg used real amputees. Saving Private Ryan is widely regarded as one of the most realistic depictions of war ever captured on film, and rightfully so. In a bid to maintain the originality of the plot, Spielberg decided to use real amputees in the film's D-Day landing scene. The opening 25-minute Omaha Beach assault scene is infamous for its intensity. Many who watched the film were said to have been torn up in tears when the scene came on. From the sound design to the camera work, everything in the sequence was designed to make the audience feel as if they were part of the invasion. Spielberg took this commitment one step further by hiring real-life amputees to portray soldiers who had just suffered traumatic injuries. These individuals were fitted with prosthetics that simulated freshly severed limbs. It helped provide truly horrifying visual effects without the sole use of CGI or makeup. Spielberg understood that the portrayal had to be raw to honor the true horror and sacrifice of war. This choice also had a psychological impact on both the actors and the audience. For the actors involved in the scene, especially those who had undergone military-style boot camps before filming, the presence of real injuries on set deepened their emotional immersion in the role. Number 3. A little emotional blackmail. Steven Spielberg is known as one of the greatest directors in film, not because he knows how to work a camera or tell a good story. He knows how to reach into human psychology and tweak things for the benefit of the plot. He decided to exclude Matt Damon from military boot camp while the rest of the cast suffered through the draining camp. What many thought was preferential treatment was actually something else. While Tom Hanks, Tom Sizemore, Edward Burns, and the other actors spent days in brutal physical training, learning military protocols, and bonding through shared suffering, Damon remained absent. This wasn't an oversight or scheduling conflict. It was Spielberg's deliberate psychological manipulation of his cast. The director understood that the central tension of his film wasn't just about war. It was about sacrifice and a deep question of whose life was worth more than another's. If the characters already had a reason to resent Matt Damon in real life, it wouldn't be too hard to resent him even more while acting. Spielberg created an authentic emotional foundation that no amount of scripted dialogue could achieve. When Captain Miller's squad expressed frustration about risking their lives for one unknown soldier, Their performance was born from the weight of real irritation. This technique reveals Spielberg's understanding that great filmmaking sometimes requires directors to become puppet masters of human emotion. Number 4. Obsessive detailing. Stephen pays keen attention to detail in the film's costumes and gear. Spielberg and his production team were obsessive in their quest for historical accuracy. They ensured that every element of a soldier's appearance, from boots to badges, reflected World War II standards. The uniforms used in Saving Private Ryan were not simply generic military costumes. They were researched and recreated to match U.S. Army specifications from the 1940s. The costume department replicated original stitching patterns, fabric textures, and insignia placement. For this project, they had to do more than tell the story right. It had to look right, or they were at risk of being dragged to filth by military veterans. The heavy uniforms and gear also helped the actors sink deeper into their roles. Even the weapons and accessories were carefully chosen. The production used actual period firearms or accurate replicas. Everything had to fit the era in which the war was set. For scenes set in muddy trenches or wet battlefields, the crew even imported mud from Normandy. This wasn't a simple cosmetic decision. It was about making sure the audience could enjoy an accurate sensory experience while watching the film. Too bad most of the audience got lost in the desaturation. Steven Spielberg's commitment to realism extended even to scenes that people might assume were unimportant. In quieter scenes, such as soldiers resting, shaving, or writing letters, their uniforms and personal effects still followed a strict historical accuracy. These details were often only briefly seen on camera, but they added to the immersive atmosphere. What does this say about making a great film? Every minute, second, and millisecond counts in cinema. To create a masterpiece, one must master paying attention to the small things. Number 5. Bloody CGI. Over 40 barrels of fake blood were used to capture the carnage and destruction of the World War II battle. Each barrel contained gallons of carefully formulated liquid designed to mimic the appearance, consistency, and flow of real blood under various lighting conditions and water exposure. The production team had to account for how the fake blood would behave when it came in contact with sand, seawater, and any other entity from the chaos of the beach assault. The sheer volume of fake blood required speaks to the scale of Spielberg's vision. Traditional war films of earlier decades usually relied on suggestion and implication to make people believe that there was battle violence. But Saving Private Ryan refused to run with that narrative. Those 40 barrels enabled the filmmakers to create a continuous, overwhelming sense of bloodshed that filled up every frame of the 25-minute opening sequence. Veterans who witnessed the sequence reported that it was the most accurate depiction of combat they had ever seen on screen. Number 6. Janusz Kaminski's cinematography. Janusz Kaminski's cinematography in Saving Private Ryan has received praise from far and wide. He employed techniques that had not gained popularity in the field then. One of the unconventional techniques involved physically removing the camera's protective coating. This typically reduces glare and flattens contrast. By stripping this layer, he introduced a heightened sense of contrast, giving the image a harder, more metallic edge. This technique, combined with adjustments to the camera shutter angle, produced a slightly jittery effect. It looked desaturated, grainy, and too real. They made use of handheld cameras to further enhance this immersive style. Rather than smooth, steady shots, Kaminski favored erratic, shoulder-mounted movement. This placed the camera right in the middle of the action and also gave the audience the feeling that they were ducking bullets and navigating the battlefield alongside the soldiers. These choices contributed to portraying the psychological chaos and confusion of war. Another one of Kaminski's techniques is the bleach bypass processing. This involved skipping the bleaching stage in film development. This method preserved the silver content in the film emulsion and helped produce muted colors. The main goal for the director and the cinematographer was for the film to match the archival footage as much as possible. Number 7. India's censorship reversal. The Indian Censor Board made an initial decision to ban the film. Somehow it was too violent to be allowed on regular television. The controversy began when India's censorship authorities deemed the film's graphic depiction of warfare too violent for Indian audiences. The censor board was tasked with protecting viewers from potentially harmful content. They demanded extensive cuts to the film's most violent scenes, especially the D-Day landing sequence. Imagine telling Spielberg that the Indian censorship board wanted him to cut out the entire D-Day sequence because they felt it was too violent. He must have laughed and slapped his knee at the request. The production team had put so much into those scenes that it could not be cut off because the board did not like it. He declined their request, refusing to compromise the authenticity of his film. The resolution came through an unexpected turn of events. India's Home Minister decided to watch the movie personally. What he experienced was far from what the board had been whining about. Rather than just violence, he witnessed a wonderful tale of sacrifice and what it meant to defend your country. The film's historical significance spoke for itself, leading him to order the film's release in India without any cuts. Number 8. The typist scene. Not all the haunting and violence takes place on the battlefield. Sometimes it happens in unimaginable areas, perhaps in an office, where the U.S. Army typist quietly breaks down while preparing condolence letters. The character is never named, and she has no lines, yet her breakdown as she types letters for the families of fallen soldiers is devastating. She silently cries because day after day, the lives of men are wasted in war, and here they are, just men identified by their dog tags. Outside this grim place, they are sons, husbands, fathers, brothers, and friends. They have sacrificed their life for the nation in exchange for almost nothing. The weight of this task is heavy and violent. This scene was not a random invention for dramatic effect. Spielberg discovered there was a real-life Army typist who suffered emotional trauma from this same duty, typing letter after letter for parents, spouses, and siblings who would soon receive the worst news. This moment in the film brings attention to the administrative part of the military. Although they might not be at the forefront of flying bullets and destructive grenades, they are still affected because trauma does not arrive in one shade. Number 9. Billy Thornton's aquaphobia. As much as it sounds impossible to turn down a role in a Steven Spielberg movie, Billy Bob Thornton did just that. Now, before you judge him, he had his reason. Billy Bob was offered the part of Sergeant Horvat, and he turned it down. This decision reshaped the direction of the film since someone else was cast. His reason? He had a deep fear of water known as aquaphobia that made the possibility of filming the legendary Omaha Beach sequences absolutely terrifying. Billy's aquaphobia is a debilitating condition that affects roughly 1.8% of the population. It is marked by intense anxiety and panic attacks when faced with water. The irony is striking. A man who built his career portraying arduous and often dangerous characters was stopped in his tracks by water. Billy was not doing so bad for himself at the time. He had recently gained recognition for his movies Sling Blade and Fargo. This wasn't merely about getting wet. Spielberg's vision for the D-Day landing required actors to spend weeks in cold waters, surrounded by explosive effects and chaos. For someone with aquaphobia, this scenario would have been a waking nightmare. Thornton's refusal made it possible for Tom Sizemore to embody the role. His gruff, battle-hardened performance became one of the film's most memorable elements. Number 10. They built a whole town. In a bid to maintain emotional intensity, the production team decided to create a fictional town from scratch. This was designated to be the setting for the film's final battle. Although Ramelle is depicted as a French town near the Normandy region, it was in fact constructed in Hatfield, England. This was a very ambitious decision on the part of the production team and ate up a good chunk of the budget. The choice to build Ramelle at an abandoned British airfield gave the production team complete control over the set. Unlike filming in an actual European town, where modern infrastructure and preservation laws might have limited their plans, the airfield gave them a blank canvas. Spielberg's team was able to recreate the look and feel of a war-torn French village. Every element, from the crumbling stone buildings to the rubble-filled streets and war-damaged church, was designed to show the destruction left in the wake of the Allied and Axis combat. Constructing an entire town also gave the filmmakers the freedom to choreograph complex action scenes with tanks, explosives, and hundreds of extras without the risk of damaging real structures. For instance, the film's final battle involved collapsing buildings, a blown bridge, and artillery fire. Filming these destructive scenes in a real town would have been nearly impossible. Number 11. The end of an era. When Saving Private Ryan claimed the Academy Award for Best Film Editing, it became the last film to win the category as a non-digital production. They won an editing award solely from traditional film editing techniques and a few innovative tweaks. For decades, film editing was a physical craft. Editors like Michael Kahn spent countless hours hunched over editing tables, physically cutting and splicing celluloid film strips. This process required extraordinary skill and a lot of patience. Every cut was permanent, every decision carries weight, and mistakes could be costly. The editor's workspace was cluttered with reels of film, synchronizers, and splicers. These tools are no longer as popular as they used to be. Saving Private Ryan was a movie describing history's most technologically advanced military operations, but the movie's editors employed skills familiar to filmmakers in 1920. By 1998, digital editing systems like Avid and Final Cut Pro rapidly gained acceptance in Hollywood. These systems offered flexibility. Editors could experiment with cuts without permanently dooming the source material. Now, editors can easily undo changes and work with multiple versions simultaneously. The transition was swift and decisive. Within just a few years, traditional editing rooms became museum pieces. Number 12. Tom Hanks' military preparation. In a crucial scene in the film, Tom Hanks delivers a powerful performance as Captain John H. Miller. His character is a reserved and resourceful officer tasked with leading a small group of soldiers behind enemy lines during World War II. One of the lesser-known but significant aspects of Hanks's preparation for the role was his training with military advisors to direct troops using period-accurate signs. Hanks underwent military training that went far beyond learning his lines or understanding battlefield tactics to portray a U.S. Army captain credibly. He was coached on how to issue commands using hand signals, voice projection under combat conditions, and the correct terminology and procedures that officers of the era would have used. These details, though subtle on screen, grounded his character in the reality of the 1944 combat leadership style. Hanks's ability to naturally lead his squad wasn't accidental. It resulted from a deliberate period of military discipline. The cast, excluding Matt Damon, endured a grueling 10-day boot camp designed to break them down physically and mentally. They shared a sense of unity and hierarchy similar to what actual soldiers would have experienced. Hanks was already viewed as the leader among the actors. He was placed in the role of captain not just on screen but also in training. Working closely with military consultants, including veterans and historians, Tom Hanks's ability to issue commands under fire, calm panicked soldiers, and lead effectively in the chaotic battle scenes came from this intense preparation. These are the reasons why he got as many accolades as he did. Number 13. Tom Sizemore's daily drug tests. Tom Sizemore was cast as the tough Sergeant Horvath. He did a great job in the role, to be honest. But at the time, he was battling wars of his own. He was fighting a personal war against substance addiction. This battle threatened to cost him a position in Hollywood's most ambitious war epics. When Spielberg discovered Tom's struggle with substance misuse, he could have easily fired the actor and moved on. Instead, he chose an unconventional approach. Spielberg issued an ultimatum to Tom. To ensure he had laid off drugs for the length of the film, Tom would take daily blood tests throughout the entire production. The stakes couldn't have been higher. According to Tom himself, Spielberg made it crystal clear that any positive test result would result in immediate termination and complete reshooting of all previous scenes. He would fire me on the spot and shoot all 58 days that I'd worked over again with someone else, Tom later shared. Spielberg was promoting discipline and a work ethic that put the project first and not the actor's personal pleasures. This wasn't just about saving face or protecting the production schedule. A lot had been placed on the line for the success of this project for one person to ruin it. It was about preserving the integrity of a film that would cost over $70 million and involve over 1,000 extras. Every morning, Tom faced his own personal D-Day, knowing that his career and the film's future hung in the balance. Number 14. The reality of the wrong Ryan. A funny mistake occurs in one of the film's most memorable scenes. Captain Miller and his squad mistakenly locate the wrong Private Ryan. This character, James Frederick Ryan from Minnesota, is baffled to learn that he is supposedly being sent home because his brother died. After a brief and awkward exchange, they realize that they have the wrong man. While it appears to be a moment of comic relief in such a grim story, this scene is actually a subtle nod to real miscommunications and errors that occurred during World War II. During the chaos of warfare, mistakes in identity and record-keeping are very common. Soldiers often shared common names, and the military's tracking systems were barely current. Handwritten records, telegraphed messages, and incomplete data usually led to confusion. Some soldiers were mistakenly reported as dead, while others went missing in action, only to be found alive months later. In some cases, families received letters informing them of a loved one's death, only to discover later that the person had survived. The wrong Ryan scene was meant to capture how costly it was to make these mistakes with human life. Sometimes misinformation leads to significant mishaps. Number 15. Matt Damon's rambling. In every great movie, there is that one actor who boldly decides to improvise. They are no longer following the script, but it works. Everything fits perfectly into the timing and the scene because of this improvisation. This scene occurs during a quiet interlude as the soldiers rest before their final battle. Private Ryan, played by Matt Damon, struggles to remember memories of his deceased brothers. He tells an embarrassing tale about spying on his brother Danny in a barn with an unattractive girl. The story goes on without a clear point. He makes awkward pauses and sometimes unrelated observations. He rambles and it feels real, like a soldier still trying to maintain his connection to regular life. Most of the audience did not know that the entire monologue was improvised. Damon abandoned the script in favor of something more organic. Spielberg's decision to retain this improvised moment further proved his deep understanding of human psychology. That scene captured something valuable. The genuine voice of a young, inexperienced soldier trying to process grief while maintaining his sanity in impossible circumstances. His ordinary, slightly embarrassing recollection feels honest, like a more polished dialogue would not. Number 16. Real World War II. Weapons for sound. For every masterful film, the sound has to be top-notch. Sound does so much more to a film than many realize. This has been tested when someone replaced a haunting tune in a horror movie with a fun song. The film no longer felt as scary. Director Steven Spielberg and his sound team understood that to recreate the chaos and horror of the D-Day landings, they couldn't rely on stock sound effects or cliché action movie gunfire. The film is widely praised for its brutally accurate portrayal of combat and the sound of warfare, particularly gunfire. By using real weapons from the era, including M1 Garands, Thompson submachine guns, bars, and German MG-42s, the sound designers captured the distinct sounds of each firearm. These weren't just gunshots, they were specific, and they added texture and authenticity to each scene. The result was as powerful as expected. The opening Omaha Beach sequence showed a sharp ping of empty M1 Garand clips, the crack of machine gun fire, and the muffled underwater chaos. These sounds came together to create a disorienting experience. Viewers are hearing it precisely as it would have sounded in 1944. The jarring sounds of weapons contribute to the emotional buildup in the film and strip it entirely of any Hollywood glamour. Number 17. AVA Hotline. Before the film's wide release, the Department of Veterans Affairs established a special 800-number hotline specifically to provide support to veterans who might be traumatized after viewing the movie. This measure might have seemed extreme for just a movie, but Spielberg's hunger for complete authenticity reopened many veterans' psychological wounds. The decision to create this hotline was both compassionate and necessary. The film's opening 25 minutes at Omaha Beach recreated the sensory assault of combat, and veterans were transported back to their darkest moments. The VA's anticipation of hundreds of distressed veterans speaks to the scope of potential psychological impact. These men had spent 54 years processing their experiences, many of whom had never discussed the horrors they witnessed. For them, Spielberg's film wasn't entertainment. It was an inadvertent form of exposure therapy administered without warning or preparation. Number 18. Filming Omaha Beach. The Omaha Beach sequence alone took over 25 days to shoot and consumed approximately $12 million of the film's total budget. That was nearly 20% of all production costs. Filming such a chaotic and emotionally charged scene demanded a different level of preparation and coordination. Spielberg employed a combination of handheld cameras, natural lighting, and tight camera angles to place audiences in the center of the action. Spielberg insisted on practical effects wherever possible. He rejected extensive CGI in favor of physical explosions, live-action stunts, and period-accurate props and uniforms. He wanted to ray the experience as it was, and he succeeded. It was so realistic that many World War II veterans reportedly became emotionally overwhelmed or even unable to sit through the scene. Number 19. Tom Hanks received his flowers. Tom Hanks was inducted into the U.S. Army's Ranger Hall of Fame 2006 as an honorary member. This extraordinary honor was bestowed largely due to his portrayal of Captain John Miller. The induction of a Hollywood actor into such a prestigious military institution might seem unusual at first glance. Still, Hanks's commitment to authenticity in his portrayal of Captain Miller was more than your typical acting. Through careful research, consultation with military advisors, and dedication to historical accuracy, Hanks created a character that resonated deeply with actual Rangers and veterans who recognized their experiences in his performance. The Army Ranger Hall of Fame was established to honor those who have distinguished themselves in service to the Ranger community. It traditionally recognizes active duty and veteran Rangers whose contributions have advanced the Ranger legacy. By extending this honor to Hanks, the institution acknowledged that his portrayal of Captain Miller had achieved something remarkable. It had educated millions of civilians about the Rangers' sacrifices and taught millions to have a more profound sense of appreciation for veterans and active military individuals. Number 20. Aging the dog tags. While much praise has been given to the Omaha Beach scene and the weapons and armory, few people notice little details like the dog tags. In fact, the props department went to extraordinary lengths to create thousands of fake dog tags and then individually age them for authenticity. That's right, they found a way to make them look artificially worn out. For those unfamiliar with military lingo, dog tags were small, flat, usually oval or rectangular pieces of metal worn by military personnel as a form of identification. It got its name from its resemblance to the ID tags worn by dogs. On a dog tag, one would find the soldier's full name, service number, blood type, religious preference, and branch of service. These dog tags were vital because they helped identify and administer emergency medical aid. During burials, one tag was left with the body and the other was collected for record keeping. A particular scene in the film showed a soldier sifting through dozens of dog tags, flipping them like playing cards as other soldiers joked nearby. Each tag represented a life, a family back home. The props team didn't settle for plastic replicas or printed metal. Instead, they created authentic-looking military identification tags based on World War II-era designs. They engraved real names, sometimes based on historical records, and then set about aging them individually. This involved techniques such as chemical treatments, hand scratching, weathering, and even exposing them to dirt, water, and heat to create the illusion of time and trauma. The objective was to make the tags look real and lived in. What are your thoughts about the Second World War and how it was represented in Saving Private Ryan? Share them in the comments. Don't forget to like this video, share it, and subscribe to this channel for more content like this. Before you go, click on the video displayed on your screen.